Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Jiayanu, Pakhairagele, Ni hao, Chuleshumme, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimus, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Halashama Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan Marhaba, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning alongside the very amazing, the very fabulous Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. Hello Shiza, how do you feel on the 8th of Ramadan today?
I feel absolutely great. How do you feel? Well, you're pretty energetic, unlike
Well,
me.
well, I'm pushing myself, but
Okay,
you know,
you're
at
doing
this,
great.
yeah, thank you very much for saying that as well. But I think that I'm a little thirsty, and I have got something over here in my throat. I think I just need water.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
this is something which I feel every other morning when I wake up in Ramadan, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that it's pretty normal as well. What about you? How's your fasting going?
Well, my fast is going absolutely fine, alhamdulillah, but I do sound a little nasal. That's because I'm developing these flu allergies and whatnot. It's so annoying. I'm not really sure if I'm allergic to pollen, though.
Yeah.
You know, I should get it checked. Maybe that's the reason I
Yeah,
catch them
probably,
more
you know,
often.
who told you to go to Multan? You might be allergic to Multan too as
Well,
well.
I'm not. Well, I think so, maybe, but I really had a great time with my parents. I feel like, I mean, it was the best weekend I took in a very long time.
Well,
so,
that's
yeah.
great. So that's amazing. But then at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, since it's Ramadan, so obviously we need to come down to a point where what are we talking about today? So all over the world, we see that, you know, people within nature and, you know, because that they're very, you know, they know that they have to help other people within the society and, you know, as individuals, they emerge as characters whom people take inspiration from as well.
Right,
But other than
absolutely.
that, you know, recently what we have seen is that there is a change in the trend, and people actually want to donate, people actually want to help, but they want to help through a channel so that they know
Right.
that whatever money or whatever stuff they're putting in is actually going to the right and the needful people.
But that, Shazad, you know what? That's absolutely right. Because even if it's for me, if I want to do charity and if I'm not really sure of the person that I'm maybe going
You
to
can
do it
trust
to,
me with your money.
right?
I'm
That's great.
telling you
I'm
that.
pretty sure I can. But you know, I really feel like this is the need of the hour to have an
Yeah.
institution, to have a facilitator who could actually check it out for you and make it sure that your charity is going to the right place. But ladies and gentlemen, since you've been watching our shows for the past 7 days of Ramadan as well, you know that in the first segment we usually do have a religious caller for you, but this one is going to be a little different because the things that we have picked up on are so important to talk about, and definitely that is what we are going to do. Since Pakistanis are one of the most philanthropic nations in the world.
I think they're ranked on number 7 in terms of the index of giving or probably, you know, transfer of money or things from individual to individual. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll definitely discuss where do we stand as a
Yeah.
philanthropic nation or not. But then at the same time, when we do have centers like Pakistan Center for Philanthropy,
Yeah.
I think that, you know, there's a huge responsibility within and on these centers as well
Right.
to be transparent, or otherwise we'll have to probably, you know, look for another solution where somebody else is actually going to intervene within this body and to check whether they're actually doing things on merit or not.
Yeah.
Because whenever we talk about non-profit organizations, I think that a lot of people have heard about a lot of scams going on, but PCP actually ensures that whether if you have given your money for a particular cause, that it is going to be dedicated to that cause and nothing other than that.
Right.
I think that this is something which actually needed to be done somewhere in 90s as well, but then, you know, it later came on in the 2000s, and I think that people really need to take advantage of this, because this is one thing which is going to build trust, which is going to bridge the gaps in between the downtrodden segment and the people who actually want to help other people.
Well, very beautifully said,
Thank you
Shazad.
very much. I always do that.
So I feel like without further ado, we should definitely be introducing our perfect, you know, very apt panel of guests over here who are associated with, you already
PCP,
mentioned,
yes.
PCP. On my right hand side, ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by someone who happens to be the director of PCP, executive director indeed. She's none other than Ms. Shadia Maqsood Amjad. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shiza.
Thank you
you
very much
for
for
having
joining
us on the show.
I'm right here,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, it's absolutely our pleasure. Next to Ms. Shazia, we have someone who happens to be the manager of certification of PCP. He is none other than Mr. Naveed Yusuf Butt. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for joining us, and I think that you're the person who's actually going to get the toughest questions as well, because I just heard that you were actually managing certifications as well.
Yeah.
But ma'am, you know, we'll get started with you.
Okay.
First
Sure,
of all,
sure.
you know, whose idea was it to have an organization which is actually going to keep a check onto all of those NGOs, whether all that money is going into a useful use or not?
So the idea of Pakistan Center for Philanthropy actually came about somewhere in the late 90s.
Okay.
And it was basically His Highness the Aga Khan who first asked the AKDN network in Pakistan to do a study on the philanthropic giving happening in the country.
Okay.
And the study for the very first time quantified that Pakistanis were a generous nation and they were actually giving 60 billion annually as at an individual level.
This was
And
in
we're
the
talking
90s.
about 60 billion rupees.
60 billion rupees. That is in 1998.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then after that study, a conference happened. And at the conference, people discussed different ideas and how this report should actually be taken forward. And one of the idea was that there should be a center on philanthropy who should do actually research, report on the philanthropic giving of the people of Pakistan.
Okay.
And also the purpose, another purpose of the center should be to build trust and credibility. And people should feel safe while giving to organizations which would have a third-party audit or a certification program. And hence it was, the center was formed as a recommendation of that conference.
Okay.
And we exist since the year 2000. So we are 19 years old, I should say.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is absolutely perfect. That is great. So well, before we do move on into the details of it, this is just a quick question which should probably come later on. But whenever Ramzan, is around the corner, do you feel like a lot of donors are probably just purging into, being the most philanthropic of them all? Do you receive a lot of donors during this month, especially, or around this month?
So Shiza, let me clarify here that, although our name says it's a Pakistan Center for Philanthropy, but we are not actually a donation receiving organization.
Okay.
So we are a philanthropy.
You connect them.
We connect them.
Right,
So we
so that's
connect
what
the
I'm asking.
donor,
Yeah.
we connect the donor and the donee. And we connect them to organizations that are certified by us.
Right.
And yes, Ramadan is actually the peak time.
Yeah.
People give a lot.
Right.
And organizations are actually preparing way ahead to receive these donations so that they can have funds to run their programs. So
Perfect.
Peak time donations.
Okay, so
that's
let's
great.
get our facts straight as well. How many NGOs operate within Pakistan?
So there are.
I mean, since the time that your office existed from, for example, 2000, how many were there, then how many got shut down, and how many never got the certification?
Yeah, we got talking about the registered ones.
So this is a long question. I'll try to be as brief as
thank you.
possible. So there are different numbers floating, and we are bad on data as a country. And sometimes there are different reports that they say that there are 100,000 plus organizations, NGOs or civil society organizations in Pakistan. But then there are other. There was another report which reported there are about 65,000.
Okay.
I would say these are all inflated numbers. I would say we are somewhere around not more than 20,000 organizations in Pakistan.
Certified.
No,
Registered.
functional, registered, functional, non-government organizations in Pakistan, organizations that are registered provincially under the 13 laws. And the number was inflated a little bit because sometimes people do form a non-government organizations, but they actually are never functional, so they just exist on paper. So in the past year or so, the provincial governments have taken a cleaning exercise whereby they have scrapped the list of the organizations that were not functional or existing on paper or that had closed down. So after all that, I think the number would not exceed 20,000 if I would ballpark it. Yes.
All right. Well, that's great. I think very quickly I'll have to move on to Naveed Saab over here. So Naveed Saab, I'm very sorry that we're actually starting on a hard point. We'll definitely be friends towards the end of the show. Yeah, so now what I want to know is that, first of all, why do you think that we need a PCP to actually give certifications to other NGOs? Why was there even a need for such an organization to be constituted or probably to be made in the first place? And then other than that, do you think that these certifications are really important and actually match the global standards of wherever the NGOs operate?
Well, to begin with, I would like to mention the context of the PCB certification program. Since it was initiated on the model of the Philippines, there were different models working in the world when it was initiated in 2003.
Right.
So Philippines model was taken as a good case study in terms of connection with the tax authority in Philippines. Now we have here in Pakistan Federal Board of Revenue, and it was thought that there should be an incentive for the NPOs, not-for-profit organizations, who are getting certification. After as I mentioned, we have a 19 years journey. So we have around 700 certified organizations, and it is other than the INGOs. We have around 70 to 80 INGOs as well certified. So that Tax Connect basically gives an incentive to the not-for-profits that after the certification program, they will get tax benefits in terms of different sections available in the income tax rules. And secondly, I would like to mention that since it was a coordinating effort, FBR was taken initially on board, and there is FBR representation on the PCB certification panel. So whenever we present reports to the like independent certification panel, we have FBR representation on that particular panel. So FBR review is there. So that's why we have, like as I mentioned before, we have 700 organizations certified. So there is an oversight of the FBR directly or indirectly. And it has also been recognized in income tax rules. And through income tax rules, the certification process, and we have now a certification model, which is around based different standards. There are 7 sets, starting from governance, finance, we have policies, program, and taxation management. So all these basically standards have been approved by the FBR. So there's a direct tax connect when it comes to the PCB certification.
Right, that is absolutely great what you're doing. But let's talk about certification now. Who, sort of is eligible for that? What are some of the standards that you've set for all the NGOs who come to you? Do you track them or they come to you? Tell us all about it.
And we definitely want to know this as well. But there's this one thing which is coming up my head. I'm sorry. But it just popped up. And that is that, if there are 15,000 NGOs within Pakistan, which are functional, roughly, then why have you only given out 700 certifications? Don't you think that we need to bridge this gap in a faster way as well, where we actually have probably 5,000 NGOs actually certified by now? Or is it for the NGOs to come to the company?
Well, it's a very valid question. It's a volunteer process mainly. Primarily, organizations come their own. I mean, nobody's forcing them. Unless the relevant commissioner FBR is asking for the PCB certification. As in income tax rule, it is provided that there are 2 windows, right, for tax benefits. One window is that of availing through the PCB certification, and second window is that of the FBR. So at times, organizations are just, like I mentioned the example of Shaukat Khana Memorial Hospital. So they have been coming to PCB like 5 times.
Right.
I don't think being part of the second schedule of income tax ordinance, they need any certification. But it's it's an image of good housekeeping, and it's a seal of good governance as well. So most of the organizations like Shaukat Khanam or LRBT for that matter, excuse me, they come to PCB for the certification in terms of having good image. Secondly, the tax benefit element is very dominant when it comes to the PCB certification, because it is the primary connect, which is an incentive for the organizations. The question of getting only 700 during the last like 17 to 18 years, but there are at times donors' preference. So there are certain donors who are giving preferential treatment to these NPOs. So at times, because of those donor constraints or compulsions or the requirements, organizations have been coming to PCP.
So the donors not always are on the, I don't know what to say that early in the morning, and that too in Ramadan as well. But then there's a lot of tricky business going under the hood as well. And I think that this is where PCP steps in. Ma'am, I'll move on to you as well. So how do you figure out that, if the non-profit organization is not involved in any other dirty businesses or probably money laundering or any other thing?
So, Shahzad, our certification is not just a desk review. So it's a field review also. So we have evaluators who are chartered accountants or legal experts who have good experience in programmatic evaluations. And whenever an organization applies to us, the first thing is to look at the documentations that they have sent in. And as a second step, we verify that going on the ground. So our team, wherever in Pakistan they are working, the NGO is working, whether the NGO is working in 2-3 areas. So we then, our field team travels to all these programmatic areas to check on ground, the ground realities. And a very important aspect of that field work is that we touch base with the beneficiaries, actually for whom the program and the money is flowing.
That's great.
So are they really benefiting from it? Is the NGO really working towards the people that it said that it would work to? So whenever our teams go down, they not only physically verify the offices, they sit down with their people, they go meet the beneficiaries. If the organization at the NGO is working with the district government, they go meet the district officials as well. So they do kind of a 360 audit of their work on the ground.
Almost
And-
everybody.
Yeah, almost everybody. And they come back and do we even take pictures, make videos, so that, you know, people have a sense of comfort when they see the evaluation report that the organization is really, really, as we say, as it is.
Yeah.
So it's the value of PCP's work is that, you know, it's an impartial third party coming in and saying, this is a good organization,
Yeah.
or this is an organization you should not be giving your child.
That is absolutely great. Ms. Shazia, you use the word impartial.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Okay. So first of all, it's absolutely a noble cause. You guys are doing an amazing job, but there's always room for human error, you know. I mean, of course, nothing is perfect. No organization, no human, nothing is perfect.
You're putting it the
Do
right
you-
way.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure maybe, you know, it's not really sort of ethical to ask you this directly, but we need to put it out for the audience out there. Does it ever happen? Has it ever happened? Or how do you keep a check on, you know, people sort of getting affiliated with the NGOs and then continuously directing the donors towards them, you know, sort of developing a bias towards one and being unfair towards the other NGOs? You know what I mean?
Well, we are not in the donation process. We are not part of the donation
I'm saying
process.
you connect
Just
them,
giving
right?
them
We do.
certifications of being-
We connect them. Actually, when I say we connect them, we have a list of all our certified NGOs on our website.
Right. So here's the thing. I'll tell you. You have a list. So if one person, if I'm a donor, I need to come to you, ask them, you know what, this is the money that I need to give to a certain NGO. You tell me. And then you're always like, hey, I like the number 8. You know, I always
Amongst
like
those
the number 8.
Okay.
700.
So I mean, we don't work like that. So
Okay,
we do
that's great.
ask. So we do ask you. Which areas would you like to give?
Okay. So it's my choice then?
It's your choice.
Oh, perfect.
So if you are supposedly from Laya and you say that I want to give to a Laya organization which is working for girls' education.
Okay. Yeah.
So we pull up the list
Wow.
and then we have, if we have 4, 5, or however many organizations working in that particular district, we share the list with you and we ask you to choose whichever cause is nearer to your heart.
Okay.
And then you can
But that's the
donate.
very right answer.
And it's
Yeah.
available online as well.
It's
You know, the
available
entire
online
list.
as well,
So
yes.
can we please share the website as
Yeah.
well so that people can go and
Sure.
check by themselves as well? Anybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's www.pcp.org.pk.
So, ladies and gentlemen, for everybody who was actually looking for a rightful path, or probably, you know, they were actually looking for a transparent transaction into
Yeah.
actually helping somebody, I think all you need to do is that you actually have to log on to www.pcb.org.
.pk.
.pk and then just pull out a list of 700 or more NGOs certified by PCP as well in order. In fact, you know, they're actually attesting that, you know, all of these firms will actually put the money to the best use as well, and then people are actually going to benefit from it as well.
Right.
And I think that they're doing a wonderful job as well, and we definitely need that. But
Absolutely.
then there are a few questions, and you know, but normal ones, you do not have to be stressed about that. And that is so, you know, ma'am actually mentioned that, you know, we'll go into the ground as well, we'll make videos and whatnot, and, you know,
For
the
2
audit
days.
the audit is taking place as well. So are these all the prerequisites of the certification, or it's just a normal process and then certification actually requires other things too as well? So what are those other things, for example? What do you think that the NGO actually needs to tell you in order to get that certification?
We're talking about the process of the PCB certification. Initially, we have desk review of the documents which organizations provide us. Then since they come for the tax benefits,
Yeah.
so there are certain requirements of the income tax rules. So we ask the organizations to comply with all those rules as mentioned in the tax law.
Okay.
So afterwards that, what we call as the ready for field process. So afterwards, we don't have like an audit approach. We just, our team visit with the consent of the concerned organizations. And then they go for 2 days. Then we have a 2 days plan.
Yeah.
And through which we, first day they go to the field. Generally, we have the major program, like we have an organization of 10 programs, we go for the major programs.
Okay.
So generally we go for 2 or 3 major programs for the first day. Then second day, our evaluation team with the management, with the board, with, as ma'am mentioned, with the beneficiaries, And after that, when they come back, then they prepare a report of around 20 to 25 pages report
Okay.
based on all observations.
That's
And
great.
after preparation of report, then that report is shared with the relevant organization, and then we get the feedback from the organization.
Okay.
After getting feedback, then the case is ready for the panel. We have monthly certification panel meetings, and as I mentioned before, we have FBI representation on that particular panel. And as sir mentioned that we have the website, I would like to mention that the NECTA has given the status of PCB certified organizations as safer charities, and they
Okay.
have provided link of PCB certified organizations whereby we have diversity of thematic areas from education, health, environment, and
Right,
all that.
right.
And secondly, it has also been recognized by the SECP. SECP considers that the PCB certified organizations are low in terms of risk in terms of money laundering and terror financing, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
So it's a recognition by the two different government entities, NACTA and
And I think it gives me confidence to listen to that
Yes,
too as well.
absolutely.
But then at the same time, since you've mentioned about all of this, there's one simple question, and that is, for example, if I run an NPO as well and I come to you for a certification, do I actually have to pay you for my certification?
So it's a service that we provide because we are a company, we are not supported by government in any way. So
Okay.
and we charge for the service. And the charge is basically, it's based on the financial health of the organization.
Right.
So
It's not a burden, right?
It's not a burden. When organizations are applying, they send in their past 3 years of audited accounts. So, and they can calculate the fee that if you have, on an average, inflows of the past 3 years, and it places you in a certain category. So if you are a 1 million or less organization, you are a small organization, and you just pay 20,000 rupees.
Wow, that's fine,
That's
right?
for 3 years.
For 3 years.
Wow, that is absolutely good.
And if you are a large organization and you have 200 million plus budgets, then you pay around 400,000, something like that. So there's a cross subsidy also working here. So in 20,000 rupees, if an organization is working in Khairpur or Thatta, imagine 2 people flying in, staying there for 2 days. I mean, we can't really meet the expenses out of that fee. So actually, the larger organizations, they help in paying for the smaller ones.
right.
So it's a cross subsidy that's working.
That is
I think
absolutely
that's nice, but I think that the idea needs to change over here as well, because we are actually talking about, you know, the donors' money used, for a particular reason, which they actually want it to be used for as well. And then when we talk about all of these NGOs and spending all of this money onto certifications, that too is, that too belongs to a donor, right?
But it's a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
If you are a quality organization and if you are certified, you tend to get more donations.
Yeah.
But that's great. Thank
I
you
think
so
that's
much for
great.
being with us
Yeah.
early in the morning,
Yeah.
especially when you're fasting as well, Ms. Shazia, Mr. Naveen.
Thank you so much
And
for
this was
inviting
so
me. Wonderful having you.
insightful. So ladies and gentlemen, talking about PCP, we actually do have, certified by NACTA and SECP, you mentioned that this is a safer place with less risks of, your money, your charity money going to wrong places. So do take a look at this. I mean, if you-
Exactly, and then at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, it takes a lot of hard work in real time. That because whenever we go out to earn money, it's not that easy. And I think that for example, if we actually want to help somebody, we definitely want to be a part of an NGO whom we trust on.
Absolutely.
And to trust onto an NGO, I think all you need to do is probably log on to PCP's website as well, which is with the name of www.pcb.org.pk. Please make sure to check out on this as well. And
Right.
donate to a trustworthy NGO. That's why
Absolutely.
PCP is out there. So we are going for a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will come back, I think whenever we talk about NGOs, there are so many NGOs which I've heard about who actually want to help eliminate hunger from a world as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
And
that's
since we
something
are
I want to
talking
talk
about,
about.
since we are talking about philanthropy, just a little build up of what we're talking about the next segment. A lot of donations come to Pakistan, for, again, you already mentioned eliminating hunger, but Pakistanis themselves happen to be the second largest donors of that. Stay tuned. We will definitely talk about that. Good morning.
Faisal Mosque is the largest mosque in Pakistan. Located in the national capital city of Islamabad. Completed in 1986, it was designed by Turkish architect Vedat Daloke to be shaped like a desert Bedouin's tent. It is situated at the north end of Faisal Avenue, putting it at the northernmost end of the city and the foot of the Margala Hills, the westernmost foothills of the Himalayas. It is located on an elevated area of land against a picturesque backdrop of the Margala Hills. This enviable location represents the mosque's great importance and allows it to be seen from miles around, day and night. The Faisal Mosque is conceived as the national mosque of Pakistan and is named after the late King Faisal bin Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia.
Welcome back to Well This Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who's fasting, even who's not, everyone who's watching us right now. So before we went out on a very short break, we sort of, gave out the information that Pakistanis are the second largest donors to their own country in terms of, eradicating hunger. But here's the sad fact. This is from 3 years ago, that Pakistan ranks 77th out of 109 countries in terms of malnutrition. Yeah. This was 3 years ago again. Have we improved? Has the situation worsened? That is what we are definitely going to talk about.
And I think that we definitely need to talk about this as well, ladies and gentlemen, because we never know ourselves whether we are malnourished or not, or whether our growth is stunted or not. And for that, what do we need to do? I think that we actually try to get the expert on the show and then talk to them.
Right. And Shazad, this was a stats from WFP itself, that 6 out of 10 people in Pakistan are malnourished. How sad is that?
Which means that 60% of the population is malnourished. So, okay. And then what does that implicate? We really need to do something about it, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. So for that very should we
go ahead.
So for that very purpose, ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by a very lovely lady who's been living in Pakistan for almost 10 years now. And as a part of this institute called Action Against Hunger, she is the country director for that. She's none other than Miss Jennifer Ankrom. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me join you.
It's definitely good to have you over here, but let's get started. Yeah. What are the figures, first of all?
Sure. So I think first I will explain that malnutrition is a range of different things.
Right.
So there is undernutrition and there is overnutrition. Okay. And it's called the dual burden, and Pakistan is very much burdened by both.
Okay.
So in undernutrition, which is primarily what we work on, there are various types again. Okay. There is wasting. Wasting is when you don't receive enough calories. So it's those cases that you hear about in Tapaka in particular, where the children's weight is reduced so much and their body is actually...
Yeah.
Exactly. But it actually exists across the country. So this wasting rate in Pakistan is 15% of children under 5.
Whoa. That's sad.
In addition to that, there is stunting. Now, stunting is called hidden hunger often because it's something which is a low height for your age. And the figures have actually reduced, so and the reduction is now 42% of under 5s are stunted.
Okay.
Now, what does stunting mean? Stunting is actually, it affects every part of your development. So you will never have the same mental abilities as a child who's not stunted. You will always have health issues.
Okay.
These will continue throughout your life. Even if you have education, you will not be able to utilize your education as would a child who's not stunted.
All right.
So these things affect the whole of the child. they affect the whole of the family, and ultimately the GDP of Pakistan is affected by the fact that you have such
Right.
large numbers of stunted children.
Absolutely, I'm pretty sure. But you know, Jennifer, I was reading in almost half of the population that we have right now, half of them women and children under 5 are all malnourished. So are they most affected by this? I mean, but the food quality that we have, the amount of food that we have, are women and children most affected?
You
Yeah.
just stole my words. Yeah.
So I think the issue with nutrition is it's quite complex. And it's not one thing that's causing malnutrition. And this is why also the government's making big efforts. All of the various provincial governments, every government has a specific strategy, as well as the federal government.
Okay.
They've copied these approaches from other countries which have been successful, such as Brazil, such as Guatemala, which have seen reductions in stunting.
All right.
But it is no quick fix,
Right,
because
of
it's
course.
not just about food. It's also about the utilization of the food.
And
So
the
if they have
quality of food, yeah.
worms, if they have other health issues, then even if they're eating the right food, they're not able to absorb it.
Right.
It's also about waterborne diseases. So if they're not having fresh water, then they get diarrhea. So again, they're not
And
able to use
fresh
the food.
water is
Yeah.
not available for a lot of people out there. You're
Exactly,
right. Yeah.
exactly. And another contamination with water is on food. So food handling. And then there are, the bad thing about stunting as well in Pakistan is that it's across the wealth percentiles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even in the highest wealth percentile, you would expect to see a dip like this across wealth percentiles. So the richest in your society, you would expect to have much less stunting rates.
Okay, okay.
In Pakistan, it does reduce, but not substantially.
Oh.
And that indicates that there are other issues beyond poverty.
Right, I was going to
Yeah.
ask that. What are the issues?
So some of them is just feeding choices. So people are not breastfeeding their children exclusively for 6
Right.
months. They see the child is eager to eat food, so they start feeding the child. But below 6 months, the child's body cannot absorb food. And that's even worse if they're low birth weight babies. And
Okay.
1/3 of babies in Pakistan are low birth weight babies.
All right.
So if you start feeding them with even things as healthy as egg or other things before 6 months, their body, they will eat it, but their body will not absorb it, and they
Absorb
will
it,
end up
absolutely.
with malnutrition.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so-
Jennifer,
so
you
then-
are. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I know you have
go
a
ahead.
question, Shazad. You're
Yeah.
very well informed, Jennifer. But just a little news I know I need to put out there. My producers are not going to love it. But this happened over the weekend in Multan, ladies and gentlemen. There was a man who fed his daughter poison and then himself as well, just because he could not afford to live in terms of food. He could not provide food for their children. It's absolutely condemnable, yes. It's sad, yes. But I feel like, I mean, we have wronged him as a society, right? I mean, it's not only him. It's a lot of people out there, hundreds and thousands of them, who are probably thinking the same thing right now. I really hope we can probably make an impact, first of all, to make them stop thinking about doing such an action,
Exactly.
but also be able to provide to them, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then at the same time, in the first half, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about that, there are so many NGOs and non-profit organizations working towards the betterment of humanity within the society. I think that, if we are still unable to figure out people who are actually feeding their daughters with poisons because they cannot afford to live, I think that it's lamha fikriya kehte hain isko, it's that moment we actually have
need
to
to
think
ponder
about
on
ourselves as well, whether we are humans or not. But then coming down to the point, Jennifer, now I think that malnourishment has to do a lot with our demographics as well then. And then in particular, do you think that it's the region we live in which add on to the percentages of malnourishment?
So I think that every Pakistani knows, and no Pakistani is denying climate change.
Yeah.
Other countries in the world are denying it. Pakistan doesn't, because you
Climate
see it
change
every
is a
day.
safe word. Please say global warming.
Yeah,
I know it
global
entails that,
warming is
yes.
one aspect
Yes,
of it.
entails
I
that,
think
right.
that it's a big
Bigger
issue
challenge,
for a country which is dependent on agriculture.
Right.
Then you've also got the issues of water, and they are being affected by climate change. So this whole nexus, the food energy nexus, this is really a big impact for Pakistan. Another thing is population growth.
Okay.
When you have limited resources, every country has limited resources. If your population is continuing to grow, then the stress on those resources is higher. And that is an issue in Pakistan when you see the population growths between even the last census and this census, it's huge.
Yeah.
And so this is becoming a bigger issue
Because
for
the
Pakistan.
census took place after probably a decade as well, probably that's why, yeah.
Yes, and And this is why also, I mean, I think that the government has taken it very seriously. This government, in the maiden speech of Imran Khan, he is mentioning stunting. He is showing pictures of the brains of children, stunted, not stunted, and showing you how important it is. This was something shared by all of the provincial governments as well. As I said, they've all got policies, and it's quite groundbreaking because from a policy point of view, there's never been multi-sectoral implementation.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
So each planning and development department has every department working with them for malnutrition. So the agriculture department, the population welfare department, the health, the social welfare, it goes on. And they all have a strategy for nutrition. They meet regularly on nutrition. So there are great efforts being done, but the problem is it's not a job just for the government.
Of course it's not, right, you're right.
Okay, so how do we come in?
So I think the basics is to prioritize women's nutrition.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's children get stunted and they get wasting within a 1,000-day window, we call it. So that's from conception to 2 years.
Okay.
Now we have a lot of efforts to give supplements to women who are pregnant.
Okay.
And that's very admirable and we should continue with that. But it takes the body a while to absorb nutrients. So you give them a tablet when they found out they're pregnant, maybe after some time. Then it takes the body a while to absorb. So that child will not benefit necessarily from that. So we have to start focusing on adolescent girls. We have to start focusing on prioritizing women because they do have the highest calorific intake for a household is actually adolescent girls.
Okay, okay.
And when women are pregnant, when they are breastfeeding, in fact, when they are breastfeeding, it's a higher calorie intake. They need 500 calories more per day.
But
Right,
it's so
and you know,
against the fashion these days. I've seen a
That's
lot
what
of
I was
mothers
going to,
who they're not just willing to breastfeed.
You know, that's absolutely true, Shazad. And you know, one of the other things that I have even noticed around, you know, of girls around me who are new mothers, of course you have cravings while you're pregnant, so they're just focusing on that. I mean, I want cupcakes, I want this, I want that. I know I'm probably not making a point here, but they do not think that whatever they intake is also the food of the baby, right?
Yeah.
So they should definitely have a proper nutrition plan. But there's this one thing I always mention in all of the shows that we do, Shazad, 64% of our population is the youth. I mean, imagine if we're all malnourished, or even more than half of us are, in the future, imagine the amount of, you know, elder people living in our country who are not even able to do anything productive at all. That's just sad to look at.
Yeah,
Right? Big
obviously
picture.
it is very sad, and I think that everybody needs to play a role. I think the television and the media needs to play a role as well, other than individuals. I think NGOs need to jump in as well. I think that the agriculture needs to be more technologically advanced so that we can produce for the growing population. So there are other factors as well. But you know, since we're only left with the last 5-7 minutes, so let's talk about solutions now. And you know, since so how do you think that we're going to fix this?
So again, as I explained, it's actually quite complex. So I'll give you an example. We're receiving funding from the European Union for a program called the Program for Improved Nutrition in Sindh. So this is a comprehensive program which is being done very closely with the government of Sindh.
Okay.
And we're covering 10 districts of Sindh, providing supplements as well as doing what we call behavior change, like awareness raising within the communities. And this program has other components, one that works with agriculture, one that works for food security. So these are the programs that are coming from the government side. And these need to continue. And I believe that the government is committed to do that. On the other side, I think at an individual level, people need to realize what they can be doing, the choices of the food that they're making. Pakistan has recently published its dietary guidelines, something which it didn't have previously, which is very positive. Because it shows that what you should be eating from the local diet, what kind of foods make up a healthy diet. And these are the things that we have to start with our children. So focusing on your children, how do they eat? What are they choosing? Are they choosing these snack foods? I've seen very poor communities buying biscuits and telling us that, oh yes, I gave them a biscuit because it's high energy. Well, it's not. It's full of sugar, yes, it's high energy, but it's not nutritious at all. So I think that these are the kind of things, individual choices, and individuals adding together and then supporting. And then I think the other thing is to realize that it's not just about food. So looking at the other things within your household that might be resulting in your child having malnutrition. Is it that you haven't got clean water? Is it that that individual child is not eating, whereas the other children in your household are?
Yeah.
So these are very important. And then as a mother, I will go back to, I think it's very important to breastfeed your child.
Right.
If you can. Obviously, there are medical reasons why you can't always, but where you can, you should.
You definitely should.
And you should encourage others around you too also.
Right. Thank you so
Exactly.
much for, yeah, do you want to
You
add
know,
it?
that's brilliant as well. But, you know, coming down to that point where you actually mentioned about biscuits as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only thing which comes to my head whenever I'm eating such a thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that, you know, so, you know, that mini pack of biscuits is for 10 rupees where you get 10 pieces of biscuits in it. Imagine for 1 rupee, you know, there's sugar in it, there's milk in it, and there's so many other ingredients in it. I don't know what they're making these biscuits of as well,
I
because they
understand what
can't be
you're
so
saying.
cheap,
Absolutely.
honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they carry any kind of nutrition, it cannot be this cheap as well. This is something which we really need to be focused on.
Right.
But then other than that, very quickly, you know, the West we see is moving towards organic foods now as well. And we see a lot of organic stores which are very expensive. You know, because I've eaten ice cream made up of rice as well, you know, and it was
How was
so
it?
yummy. It was so
Really?
yummy. I
Okay.
cannot tell you.
I'm
Okay, so everybody's
interested.
fasting here. I'm going to respect that. But, you know, we're not moving into that direction.
But I think even before you look at organic food, you've got home production.
Yeah.
So kitchen gardenings. Even urban people can set up terraces on the sides of their walls, grow things on their roof. This reduces the cost. So you're talking about cost. And believe me, home-produced food is much tastier than food that
Indeed,
you're
I'm
buying from the markets.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's much tastier. You can be sure of what's been put on it. This
Yeah.
is the issue with a lot of foods, pesticides, a lot of chemicals that you're not aware of are being used both at production and in storage, and when they're serving it on the streets, we know that there's certain things sprayed on them.
That's
Absolutely. Thank you so
amazing.
much for saying that, Jennifer Ankrum. You definitely had a lot of knowledge about this. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask her a few personal questions only if she's going to allow us. as well.
Okay.
Because you've been here for 10 years,
Yeah.
you've been married to a Pakistani
Yeah.
guy, that's wonderful
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So and you're married to a Pashto guy as well.
Yeah.
So you know, that's great. So first of all, what have you learned, you know, from Pashtun culture? And then how was it to be settled in Pakistan?
I've learned many things. I think whenever you travel, you always learn a lot of things. I live in a combined family. I think this is probably the biggest difference between if I had stayed in the UK and where I live
I'm
here.
shocked to hear that.
And having a small child, it's fantastic living in a combined family.
You get so much help. That is so true.
And
yeah.
you know, my in-laws have been fantastic, very accommodating, and
Sweet.
we have a very nice setup. So this, I would say, is the most positive for me personally.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this side of living in Pakistan.
Wow, that is
Amazing.
lovely.
Amazing that
so
is.
since we're very
That's
short on
right.
time, ladies and gentlemen, you know, there's just one thing. Now, this is my personal experience. Please do not make it a fact. This is just what I observed. So, you know, Shazad, every other day, I mean, whenever we buy things, we get some loose money, right? Change probably even 50 or 100, which we don't care about. It's lying somewhere over there. We do not know how to use it because, you know, of course, it's extra. That can make such a great impact. You know, I was speaking to one of the helps that I have at my home, and she said, you know, Baji, 20 rupees ki itni rotiyan aa jati hain, theek hai? Or like 40 se 50 rupees ka itna salan. So basically, within 100 rupees, you can feed a small family. Proper meal with roti and salan that you have at your houses, ladies and gentlemen. Please be careful because you are the element of change. And I really expect a lot from our nation especially.
Exactly, and we're supposed to do that as well. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for being with us. It was wonderful to have you on the show as well. And earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about PCP, which is actually Pakistan Center for Philanthropy.
Right.
They make sure that your money is in the right hands as well. Please make sure to check out their website. Other than that, there's a lot of things which we need to probably do to combat malnourishment as well, or stunted growth.
Yeah.
Please make sure to put in your own effort because this Ramadan is the best opportunity to do it as well,
Absolutely.
right? You got it. Please make sure to avail it. Do write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
Well this morning.
on Twitter,
Well this morning without a G.
on Daily Motion and YouTube.
Also well this morning.
And the fabulous if it's going to be
5 past 11 p.m. tonight.
yeah, till the next time, whenever you feel like drinking water, please make sure not to because it's now iftar time. Look after yourselves. Good morning.
Good morning.